Mike, I'm making you this video because I'd like to walk through some things with you, and I think a visual is important. And I know it's a challenge to get on a call and screen share and do all that. So I'm hoping that this video will allow you to watch this at your convenience, and then you and I can have a follow-up conversation. So what I have on my screen now is Yesflow, the Yesflow assistant. I'm doing this from my desktop computer, and that's very intentional. The feedback from a lot of your team is we're in the office more than we're out and about. So the notion of being able to do something through a mobile device is not as compelling to them as it would be to someone that spent more of the time out in the field. So really want to illustrate that, yeah, if you want to use it on your mobile device, you certainly can. You also have a desktop option, and I think there's some compelling reasons to use that. But as you know, it's probably been 3, perhaps 4 weeks ago that we had the session with your team. Everyone got connected. We originally had some performance issues. We've since done some troubleshooting to identify what's causing that. We have corrected it, and performance has been quite good for at least a week and a half, perhaps 2 weeks now. Despite that, our user logs tell us that your team is not logging in yet. So that has me a little concerned. And I reached out to both Angie Gossett and Scott Gambrell to see if they'd provide me with some feedback and some input. Both of them were kind enough to share their time, and I got some really good feedback and input from both of them. So let me kind of walk through a couple scenarios and tell you why, again, I'm doing this video. We talked about the changes you've made to group library, and namely this management summary field has been added. And the idea is that someone keys in what's going on most recently with any particular deal or any particular opportunity, and that will feed the PSR report. So that's you're capable of doing that inside of Yesflow. And so let me show you how that would work. So I have an example. This is in your UAT environment. So I have this example of Max Auto Glass, and I have an opportunity there. And you notice here's my management summary field. I have stuff like my close date and whatnot. I can edit that and edit really any of it, including that management summary. The thing about this management summary field is that people are going to be appending to that with their most recent entry. And I've heard you guys talk about when those updates were made are important. I validated that with Angie, and she confirmed that it is. Using this management summary field, you're going to require that people type the date when they made the entry so that you'll know when you read the update when each entry was made. So in this example, just to illustrate this, I've indicated that on the 7th of July we received the RFP and whatnot, and those of course notes can be anything. And then I've added a second one to indicate, well, I have a new update, and I put that on the 21st. To me, I wasn't in love with that approach when I saw it, and I confirmed with Angie and Scott. Both of them are really skeptical that you're going to get people to consistently type in a date so that you'll know when an update was made. I know the driver of this is that of using a single field in this manner is that you want to be able to export it to Excel, and a restriction of exporting data from CRM into Excel is that you're kind of having to use a single field like this. But I have my concerns about how effective that's going to be for you and how effectively you're going to be able to achieve the results that you're looking for. The other part of this and feedback I heard, from a personal productivity standpoint, this doesn't help them. This is something that they're feeding, and the only reason they would do it is to feed the PSR report, which I think is going to lead to some friction and some challenges, and not be as effective as we really hope. So yes, I can do it. I can add a new entry, and I can say this one happened on the 22nd, and here's my note. But again, I'm a little suspect about how well people will do that, how readily people will remember or even be willing to do that. So I wanted to show you another method that's more in line with how we designed Yesflow to be used. So I'm going to follow the same scenario. I'm going to pull up recent opportunities. I have an opportunity here for new business with 50 new members. One of the things that both Scott and Angie mentioned was the importance of what's your probability of winning the deal and what's your sales stage. So we have built in, I can update the sales stage, I can update the probability, and that's quick and easy to do from within Yesflow. Simple update. Group library will reflect that now. I'm going to show you that in just a minute. But the other piece that I think's a different approach, that it's the main thing I wanted to show you, is the how do we handle notes. So the idea of a note is, again, I can either type it in. I'm going to use voice. I've had feedback from a number of your team that, like Roz in particular, she considers herself not a great typist. So if she could voice in a note, that would be a personal win to her from a simplicity standpoint. So I'm going to do that now. Gail called me and said that she received the most recent quote that I just got back from underwriting, period. She said we're very competitive with United and she thinks they're going to go with us, period. The final decision is due next Tuesday.
Your note has been added.
So you'll notice that voice transcription was quite accurate. I won't contend it's perfect, but it really does an excellent job with understanding what I said and transcribing it correctly. So our belief is, what could be easier than simply voicing in a note to capture something that just happened while it's fresh on my mind? The other thing from your PSR standpoint, everything's automatically time and date stamped. We're actually only displaying the date here. We actually do have the time, if that's important to you, when that note was captured. So it's easy to see a chronological history of how that deal is progressing simply by reading the notes that someone is making throughout the life cycle of the deal. Our contention is people need a system of keeping up with what they've talked about anyway, and this is arguably easier than what they're doing today. Roz, for instance, showed me her worksheet where she handwrites notes on her worksheet and she writes dates on her worksheet of when she needs to follow up with things. Scott Gambrell has used a spreadsheet for years. So he's putting notes about conversations in his spreadsheet. He's putting dates of things that he needs to do next in his spreadsheet. Our contention is we could simplify the process and it would be perceived as a win from their standpoint from a personal productivity. So that's the note piece. Now I want to touch on the follow-up, or sort of the tickler system that people have said that they like. We have in the assistant, you notice I can add a task, I can add an appointment, or even a phone call. That's a matter of personal preference. A lot of your team said I like to use my calendar, I use appointments. Others say I use some sort of task system. I'm going to use a task for no particular reason other than I tend to use tasks for things like this more than appointments. And I'm going to put follow up on decision. And remember, they told me that would be next Tuesday. So I'm going to put the date of next Tuesday, create that task, and that's it. That is a CRM task, and that will, through your Outlook synchronization, push that down to somebody's local Outlook. So if they have their smartphone and they have Outlook on their smartphone, wherever they get reminders, that task I just created, or if I had created an appointment, that's going to get pushed there as well. So we're trying to sync in with how people already do things. To illustrate the concept of how that information from Yesflow might feed the PSR report, I've now gone into CRM. This is actually a newer version of CRM than what you have with Group Library. So there's this timeline capability that I have that's not yet available to you. The timeline itself is not important. It's really more of a concept that I thought would be a good illustration of what might be content for the PSR report. So if you notice this timeline, it includes things like tasks that I've created. It also includes notes that I've captured, and it also has things like when I changed the probability or the sales stage. So notice I changed the probability from 90% to 100%, and it captured that. And that's all part of my chronological history of the deal. So what I would ask you to consider is, if you had this level of content, would that be what you would want to see in the PSR? And if that's true, then I think we could achieve more of a win-win, because simply adding notes and reminders is a personal productivity tool that people will do without the PSR report or with it. They may not choose to do it in Yesflow, but they have a method today. I believe if we made Yesflow easy enough, they'll like using Yesflow. And if they know that by using Yesflow, that's automatically going to feed all the information you need for your PSR report, and it's not an extra effort. I think that is a better method of achieving the win-win so that you're happy and they're happy. The feedback, again, that I heard was that management summary field, they're only going to do that because you're making them do that for the PSR report. So I think the friction you face with the PSR report to date is quite likely to still exist in the future unless we take a simpler method of getting there. And I think the native design of Yesflow is a simpler method of getting there that I think is worth trying. So appreciate you watching the video. I hope to catch up with you soon and have a more detailed discussion about it. Again, appreciate all your support.